Welcome back to Tightwad Workshop. So one of my neighbours has asked me to dispose of this old barbecue for her. Now, there's nothing substantially wrong with it, but I already own a barbecue. So what we're going to do in this video is give it a thorough clean, patch up and repair anything that needs it, and then we'll pass it on to one of my other neighbours who does need a barbecue. Let's get started on that now. I'll start by using these trestles and a piece of plywood to make a temporary workbench. Then I'll remove this shelf and the cast iron cooking plates from the barbecue. This barbecue probably originally came with an open grill plate as well, but that's long gone now. This particular barbecue uses cast iron burners, which can be removed like this. You can clean the rust flakes off these if you want to, but it won't make the barbecue work any better. This barbecue also has this wok burner, so we'll remove its parts as well. And finally, we can remove the drip tray. This looks like flaking paint, but it's actually just burned on grease and oil. It's easy enough to remove with a paint scraper, but you do need to be careful not to scratch the paint underneath. The body of the barbecue also has a bit of condensed grease and oil build-up, so I'll scrape it off as well. This one's actually fairly clean. I've cleaned a few of these which were much worse. Now we'll bring in a bucket of nice hot water and add plenty of dishwashing liquid. It's a good idea to wear rubber gloves for this next part, because that makes it easier to tolerate the hot water temperature. Now it's just a matter of dissolving and washing away the remaining areas of grease and oil. Some of the thicker areas can be scrubbed off first with a metal scouring pad like this. You can also use an oven cleaner spray to make this job easier, but I recorded this video on New Year's Day and all the shops were closed. Now we'll move on to cleaning the barbecue plates. This is the same process, using the scouring pad and plenty of hot water. Once the plate's clean, we'll move on to the wire rack. The chrome plating on the rack makes it much easier to clean. It'll be much easier to clean and paint the trolley if I remove it from the barbecue first, so I'll lift the barbecue up onto these two trestles. Now we can remove the gas hose. This connector is loosened in the usual lefty-loosey direction. Most of the trolley can now be disassembled with a screwdriver and a 10mm spanner. Once all the bolts are loose, we can remove the side shelves from the trolley and pull the trolley out from underneath the barbecue. I think that the previous owner had cut the hole in this lower shelf to hold a drop-in basin of some kind. Now, I don't have a suitable replacement basin, so I think I'll just leave it off when I reassemble the barbecue. Now we can remove the legs and prepare the trolley parts for repainting. This shelf has some surface rust and a lot of flaking paint. The flaking paint's easy enough to remove with a scraper, and the surface rust can be cleaned off with a wire brush. You can strip it all the way back to bare metal if you want to, but removing the loose material is good enough for the rust repair paint that I'm going to be using. I'll give the legs a rub over with the wire brush as well. This will help the paint stick more tightly to the surface. Next I'll use some masking tape to cover the wok burner's instruction plate. I'll trim the tape around the plate with a knife. I'll be using this metal care paint for the trolley. It's a 3-in-1 product that doesn't need a separate primer coat. I'll use a flat screwdriver to open the tin, and then give it a thorough stirring before we start using it. You need to keep stirring until the colour and the thickness of the paint is consistent, like this. This is an oil-based paint, so I wiped the parts over with a rag soaked in turpentine before I applied the paint. Just use a small amount of paint on the brush and nice long strokes. This kind of paint will self-level, and the brush marks will mostly disappear as it dries. I'll paint the trolley legs and the base in the same way. It was a nice hot day, about 30 degrees Celsius or 86 Fahrenheit, so I was able to apply a second coat later in the afternoon. I usually just rest the lid on the paint tin in between coats, and if you're going to be using the paintbrush again within a few hours, you can simply put it inside a plastic bag rather than washing it. While we wait for the paint to dry, we do need to do some sheet metal work. This barbecue only has a single piezo snapper igniter on the right-hand burner. The idea is that you light this burner first, then switch on the gas to the next one. This metal flame tunnel will then guide the gas from the second burner across to the first one and ignite it as well. These tunnels are made from thin sheet metal, and since they're in a hot area, they eventually get burned out, like this. They're held in place by these bent tabs, so we just need to straighten the tabs with some pliers and they'll lift right off. Once we've marked out the unfolded shape of the flame tunnel, we can cut it out with some snips. We can cut most of the lines using the snips and break out the waste pieces using a pair of pliers. But these interior lines will need to be cut out using a cold chisel and hammer. Once we've scored the lines with the chisel, we can break out the waste using our pliers. Now we can fold the piece to shape in our bench vise. We can use our hammer to sharpen up this line if we need to. The two outside folds are easy to do, but for the inside fold we'll need to use this piece of square tubing as a spacer in the vise. Now we can make the fold the same as before. But since we don't have quite enough clearance to fold it all the way over to 90 degrees, we'll just have to finish it off freehand. We can get away with using this method here because the flame tunnel doesn't have to be super precise to do its job. Now we can refit the flame tunnels and the burners, then use our pliers to bend their locking tabs into place. It turns out that reassembling the trolley is a really tricky job to achieve solo, but I eventually managed it. Refitting the wok burner lid and the hood was much easier. Then I reattached the gas line. The BBQ was missing its gas bottle hose, but luckily I had a usable one in stock. Now we can hang the gas bottle from its hook and connect its hose. The gas hose was missing its rubber seal, so I fitted a new one before trying to use it. The gas connection on the bottle is left-handed, so we turn this one lefty-connecty. Now I'll turn the gas on and listen and smell for any leaks. No leaks were detected, so I'll refit the plates and close the lid. It was about now that I finally realised I'd attached these shelves on the wrong side of the legs, so I fixed that. Then I wrote up an advertisement in my local neighbourhood Buy Nothing group, waited for some responses, and selected a recipient. Savannah reports that everything is working as designed, so I think we can mark this one up as a success. That's all for now. Thanks for watching. Tightwad Workshop is filmed in front of a live studio audience.